top 10 techniques to teach without being preachy. Number one, show, don't tell. And if you've watched me, you know I say this a lot. When you are sharing something vulnerable to yourself, when you're sharing one of your stories, it can be a story that is emotionally sensitive. It can be just something that, something from your past that no one may even know. I talked in another video about, being on stage and just, as a kindergarten first grader, and just being on stage. And that's not something that's like made me really vulnerable, but I shared that story in the hopes that people will, feel a little bit closer to me because I'm letting them in. Now, when you do that, you don't necessarily even know you're doing it. And that's what really helps, because me on this side of a camera, I'm building a relationship with people I may never ever know. I genuinely am pouring love across the camera, and I don't see faces. I don't know what your reaction is, and it's tough at times, but at the same time, I love it because I'm not doing this to get the praise, to get fame or anything like that. I'm doing it because I genuinely wish someone had been around to help me with knowledge, to help me with free teaching and things like that. So when you are able to show and not tell, your readers will see and feel and relate to your story. And it's not you saying, this is what you need to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're saying, so I went through this situation, and I did this. And on the other side of it, I ended up happier. And when you tell that story and you share your something of yourself, then the reader will be able to understand by watching what you did, and the reader will recognize the parallel to their own life, to their own stories, and they will be able to create that understanding on their own. So you don't have to tell them what to do. You just explain your story. You share your story and let them take that small little leap over on their own. Number 2, subtlety is key. So you really want to avoid explicit lessons or morals. Never, please never put the moral of the story is don't lie. If you wrote a good story and if it was engaging, then OMG, please tell me that your reader is smart enough that you didn't need to tell them that. Okay, so that's one of the things. When you overstate the obvious, they feel like you're talking down to them, and they feel like, gosh, this person is either such an arrogant something, or they must just really believe that the whole world is full of idiots. You don't want your readers to think that of you. You want your readers to know that you're just another person who has been through experiences, and you're sharing your experiences, and you're being vulnerable and open and authentic. And when you do that, your readers are able to interpret on their own. And so be subtle with your messages. Don't go over the top. Let them get right up to the edge, and then leave them, and then let them, you've saved time for them, you've saved heartache for them, but don't take them all the way there. Let them feel that accomplishment for themselves as well. Number 3 Empathetic characters. So something that's really important when you share a story is you, let's say, and I'm just going to throw out, uh, I'll use drugs. Say that you're going to share a story about drug use, and I let's say that I'll pretend I'm a drug addict. If I were a drug addict, I would share my story, and I would say, you know, this is what I went through, and I wouldn't say this is what I went through, 1, 2, 3, 4. I would draw the picture, and I would take them on that journey with me, and I would have the conversations that your reader would be the fly on the wall, and the reader would say, oh my gosh, yeah, this is a horrible thing. I really feel bad that the author went through that. I hate that they hurt that bad. I hate that they thought that, you know, being numb was better than feeling. So when you open up and you show things in a way that your reader can be empathetic, then the characters that you're writing about are going to teach as they come out the other side. So you don't have to put anything out there as, anything other than sharing your story. But you must be vulnerable. You must show the weaknesses of your characters, because if you don't, your your reader is still just going to feel like you're preaching. Don't put the weakness in that story, the things that that made them broken. Let your reader want to hug you and to tell you that it's going to be okay, or hope with you that it's going to be okay. But don't let them think that you're just saying, this is what happened and duh. So don't make sure that you're soft and you're authentic. Number 4, realistic dialogue. So use dialogue to convey the ideas subtly, letting the characters debate or discuss rather than dictate. So what I mean by that, and let's go on with the drug addict storyline. Maybe you're going to have an experience where this person is going through addiction and they're broke, they're out of money, and they sell their body to get drugs. Let that story be realistic, raw. Let your reader hurt for your character, because you're not going to say, look, I would like some drugs, and I know that's like silly, but let it be a real drug deal. Let it be where you said, hey, can you have a little extra anything? And maybe the friend / dealer might say, what do you got for me? And just let that conversation play out. Of course, you want it to be as close to the truth as possible, but you may not remember the exact details of a conversation. But in using that realistic dialogue of more or less what happened, if you sold your body to get high, then use that real conversation, that realistic conversation, because your reader is going to feel sick in their stomach that how did you get in this position? Oh my gosh, how are you shouldn't be doing that. How are you in there? And they feel so much for you. Number 5, use metaphors and symbols. These can represent really bigger ideas that allow the readers to arrive at insights on their own. That's kind of self-explanatory, but just make sure that you're drawing pictures for your reader. Let them get there without you spelling all of it out. Number 6, engage emotions. And I think I've kind of said this all along, but when you are tying the reader in emotionally, the emotional resonance can make lessons feel more personal and impactful. And by that I mean, whether your reader is a drug addict or not, just the simple fact that they totally feel for the character, they empathize with the character, they want to save that character, they want to hold them, they want to protect them, and when something bad happens or something good happens, your reader is going, because they're emotionally involved, your reader is going to be, oh God, like, whew, okay, good. They're rooting for you, and that's what you want. And that's what a good writer can do is you bring that reader emotionally in with you. Number 7, conflict and resolution. Every good story has conflict, and then a conflict doesn't mean you have to be fighting, though a lot of times it might, but that conflict might be something inner turmoil, an inner conflict where you want to believe that you have control of your body and that you don't need drugs or whatever it is, and you're going back and forth and some internal dialogue, some different things like that. But when you add that conflict, your reader becomes even more compelled to be there with you. But when you have a resolution, then your reader is right there in your cheering section. Number 8, use humor. Now, I know that I'm using this drug addict example for something to be very raw and as an example. You may think, how in the world are you going to use humor on a story about a person overcoming addiction? Well, it may be a little tough, but you can usually find something. But when you have a well-placed joke or a funny situation, it can convey something without feeling like you're lecturing them. I just every situation, every scene that you're creating, look for, especially if it's getting really heavy, because you don't necessarily want your reader to, for a prolonged time, to just feel like sick and scared and down. And you want to give them some of that emotional roller coaster that they're looking for in a story. Number 9, make it a journey. This whole thing is about learning a lesson, and they're not going to learn a lesson if your character doesn't start from like some point of hell and go through all of the conflict and the obstacles and then come out on the other side. They have to have that the win. So get your character to the other side. However you do it, make sure that your reader feels it with you, but get them out on the other side. And then number 10, let your characters learn. So the way that, in my opinion, the best way for your reader to learn a lesson is if your character learns a lesson. And if you're writing a memoir, your character is likely you. So that's usually the hardest, but the most important thing is use the words of inflection, reflection, and kind of make sure that in your story, you as the character, or your character, if for some reason it's not you, that your character learns a lesson. And the lesson may be something really profound. It may be something, that they're falling still just a little bit short of maybe the end destination, but they have at least learned a lesson. And when you do that, again, your reader will be like, oh my God, that was amazing. I'm so glad. I'm so relieved. And then as they're digesting what they've just read, they're going to be able to associate, this person did this. this person made it out. This person got out of their hell and they came out on the other side and now they're doing great. So when your reader sees someone who has a success story, and especially if it's a true story, then they can associate with that, and they believe, if they can do it, I can do it. I can get out of this. And that's what you want. That's really what your goal is. It's not to be a teacher. It's to show your readers that if I can do it, you can do it. Okay, so if you have any questions, please subscribe, like the video, and put any questions in the comments below. I do come in and check and interact with everybody. I really believe that showing your lessons to your readers is something that we all could work on. We could all get a little bit better with, and it's super important that when you're helping, you are sure that you're helping because you genuinely want to help, not because you want the praise. Because when you take the focus off yourself and you share your story with a heart of wanting to help someone else, the fact that you aren't the star anymore, the fact that you're showing the ugly side, the ugly journey, and then you get to show how you won and how you got out on the other side, that is in itself going to show through in your words. It really will. And I look forward to, in fact, make sure that you follow me, because I would love to see what your stories are. I love reading people's stories and getting to know who they are. Have a great day. Hey, Sydney Brown back again. We're going to go into the top 10 elements to avoid to keep your lessons subtle. Now, why do you want to keep your lessons subtle? Because no one wants to be hit over the head with a lesson. No preaching. You're showing and letting your reader join in your journey where you learned. So you're subtly teaching them. Don't beat them over the head with it. Be subtle. So this is the top 10 elements to avoid. Don't do this to keep your lessons subtle. Number 1, overbearing narrator. Now, obviously, if you're saying, you shall not do this, you shall not, that's not what they want to hear. That's probably stuff they got from their parents and they rebelled against that. And you're not helping when you do that. So just don't do that. Number 2, inauthentic character reactions. So your characters should react in ways that align with their development, not just to illustrate a lesson. So, like the 3 little pigs, you have the one little pig that has his house of straw, and, he learns his lesson the hard way because his house gets blown away. In your lessons, you want to make sure that your first little pig, he learns his lesson because all of a sudden he has no protection. He is scared. He's running. And you have to, whatever your story is, make sure that it's realistic. You don't want to say, and that's why this person did this. And be real. Be realistic. If it's gritty, if it's dark, if it's scary, let that be real. Because if your reader doesn't believe it, their walls go up and you've wasted your time. Number 3, don't oversimplify complex issues. Real life is very nuanced. It's your story should be as complicated as it really was. If you're writing a memoir and you went through, we used drug addiction in another video, so I'm going to stick with that. If you used drug addiction in your story, and let's say it's a memoir, so you've gone through addiction and recovery. If you oversimplify something that's very complicated. There's so much more to something like drug addiction. You're a good person, but you got caught in something bad. You're in a bad habit, you're doing bad things, whatever that is. Make sure that you give that complexity to your character. Especially again, if it's a memoir, you should not be the hero of the story until you're on the other side. So let it be as dark as it needs to be for your reader to feel it. Number 4, moralizing. Don't put your morals on your reader. Avoid any direct moral statements. Allow the reader to infer the moral of the story, and don't don't say, and that's why you should never do drugs. Don't preach at them. No one wants to be preached at. Number 5, overused tropes. Don't do it. Be creative and original in how you convey your messages. If you use something that has been overused, your reader's going to pick it up, they're going to start reading, and they're going to be, oh, okay, yeah, flip. Yeah, okay, flip. They've disengaged. You lost them because there's not enough in your story that's unique. Now, your story is absolutely unique. So don't lessen your story by trying to shortcut it or just keep it at a very high level. Let yourself go into the weeds, go into the emotions where it will be unique. Let's see, number 6, condescending tone. Oh my gosh. Treat your readers as intelligent individuals, that they're capable of understanding and interpreting your story. You don't have to spell it out like they're in kindergarten. Let them, you take them up to the edge, but let them finish that thought. Let them finish the journey. Some things you want to go very deep into the details when you're pulling them into the emotions of your story, but don't be condescending. Just don't. Number 7, repetition. Now, repetition is a good thing often, but when you repeat the same lesson over and over again, basically at that point, it just sounds like you're trying to get someone to memorize something, because that's why you would be repetitive. If you're talking about something nonfiction and you want to teach something, then you'll repeat it, because we need to hear things, 7 or 8 times before we actually digest what we're hearing sometimes. But when you're repeating a lesson over and over again, your reader's going to be like, huh, thanks. Don't do it. Number 8, unrelated side stories. So you want to keep subplots, and subplots are a good thing, but you want to keep the subplots and the side stories relevant to the main theme, because if they go off too far either direction, you're going to lose the interest of what really matters. And that way you can, if you stay on track, you can be subtle in what you're saying. Number 9, one-dimensional characters. So what that means, characters should have the depth, the complexity, get to know them. Don't just let them be there to illustrate a single point. Your character, and if again it's a memoir, you're probably the character. So show your humanity. Show, if you bite your nails, talk about how you bit your nails. If you run around in your underwear all day and you don't want to go out of your home, don't be afraid to say things like that, because especially, and I'm going on, we're still on the storyline of a person going through some sort of an addiction. Talk about things that are relevant, that give your character depth and show your reader where you were, like the antisocial, the wherever it was. And those things that you add to give your character depth and complexity, they will potentially associate with that. And they'll be like, oh man, yeah, that's me. That's me. I'm doing that. And you're not telling them, are you doing this, this, this? You're telling them what you did. And they're recognizing it. So when you do things like that, you're really being subtle. You're not smashing anyone over the head with a lesson, and you are helping them by letting them help themselves. Number 10, neglecting the story. You know, you're telling a story first and foremost. The lessons should be a natural part of the narrative. It should not be, here, I want to tell them don't do drugs. They're going to figure that part out when you tell your story. Now, if your story ends with, maybe a friend died from an overdose, I'm literally all just making all this up, but whatever the story is, whatever the complexity is of your individual story, you want to make sure that you're conveying all of your message through the story itself. When you do that, teaching without preaching allows the reader to get engaged and to feel what you felt or what your story character felt. It encourages them to think, to reflect, and even kind of see the world in a different light. When you have a great story, it isn't just about what happened in the story, but it's how it affected the characters in the story. Who all was impacted by that one person's addiction journey, whatever your story is. Make sure that there's complexity and that your reader will absolutely understand with a little bit of reflection that don't do drugs, whatever your real message is. Just don't beat them up. Don't be preachy. Don't condescend. Let them take that journey for themselves. All right. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and let me know what you thought, what questions you might have in the comments below. Thanks a lot.